Hello everyone, today we will learn how to use each one of the math nodes that Blender offers in compositing, and we will give some examples on how to use it in the video that you have just seen, and also how to create it yourself. I will explain how each one of them work, because depending on the background that you have, you may need different strategies, and with this video at least you will learn the basic usage of each one of them. So let's start with the box mask. This is a very basic one. In this case, what you can see is that you have the mask here, which is a white color, and the way it works is that usually the white color is the part that you're interested in, and the black one is the one that you're not interested in. And this works very good when you are using some mix nodes for adding, subtracting, mix, or whatever. So if you were to put, for instance, this photo and this photo here, and then we use the mask, what we're going to see is that the output is that we are using the second photo for the part of the mask. So this is how we're going to work mostly with all of these channels, because we will be using the output that is black and white and not the photo output. So, well, you can see how the box mask works. It's actually similar to each one of those other masks, and the double edge mask, the way it works is you set an inner mask and then an outer mask, and it can help you to isolate some borders and or any part that you're interested in. But actually the best way to put any mask, and we will see that later, is going to the motion tracking tab and then going here and mask. When you're in the tab mask, it's very easy to set the mask. You can set it, for instance, for myself, but it's usually not recommendable to isolate the characters or the persons in the video by adding mask, because you will end up fixing it almost for every frame. But if you wanted to add a mask, you would hold ctrl and then left click, and if you actually hold the left click, you can also modify a bit the knobs, because it's a kind of this kind of curve, so it will adapt your needs. We will go through this later to isolate some parts. And then we have the channel key. What the channel key does is it takes one of the channels or the colors that you selected, R, G or B, and for instance with the R, if there is any pixel in the photo that has bigger values for the R than the G or the B, that's why there is a max. If you go to single, you can compare it only to one of the other channels, but let's say to max. So if any of these pixels have more red than green or blue, for instance my body is probably having more red than blue, it will then do this comparison. If this value is 1 or higher, it will be completely opaque. If this value is 0 or lower, it will be completely transparent. So as we can imagine, there is no completely red point. So what you can see here, it seems like everything is opaque, but that's because most of the pixels in the photo don't have more red than any other channel. And that we can check with, for instance, if you go back to the normal photo and then you select the red channel, what you see brighter is the part that have some red, but it doesn't mean they have more red than any other. And then if you compare to any other channels, actually the only parts that are more bright, more white than when selecting other channels is the part of the body or the white color, because the white color is actually 111, so it contains all the channels, even though it's not completely white here. So you can select here the different channels, and like I said, the red one is the mostly relevant in the skin of the body. If you come back to the normal photo with transparency, and then we start playing with this part here, we would see that if we pull up the low value, every pixel that was red before, or that had more red than any other channel, is now transparent, and that's because there are no values 100% red probably. And then if you go to the mate, you can see that it's the same than before. Then you would be able to adjust a bit these parameters here to get the proper amount of red and low, but this is usually to separate one of the colors and to play with this, which is not what we want exactly here. So let's just go to the next node. This one is used, it was quite used before the king node appeared, which is down here. And what it does, it tries to delete the colors that you specify here, and then you can put some acceptance, which is kind of it's a kind of a variance of the color. So if, for instance, if I put a blue, or if I with a drop color I select this blue here and I say that the acceptance is higher, then as you can see it's actually selecting more part of the photo, because I'm accepting more tones of blue. Then if you go to the matte and we go to the cut off, what you can see is that this value here determines how much gradient you want. So that means that if the acceptance is 80 but 10 degrees up and 10 degrees down, the color matches, then it will be transparent. However, if you put it down to 0, that means that anything that is not really accepted will be transparent. And if you put it up to the maximum to 30, it means either it's accepted, or if it's not in this range, then it will be completely cut off. So what we're going to use most likely is the color key, which is very powerful. And if you connect the image, you will see that it easily deletes some colors of the photo. And then you can play quite good here with the hue, which is the range of the hue. So I've selected this kind of blue, but if I extend this H here, the hue, it means I'm accepting all other colors, even if they're not this pure kind of greenish blue. And then you can play with the saturation as well, and then you see that I'm removing more part of the photo. The good part is that I've selected one color that is not present in our clothes, so that helps a lot to delete a great amount of parts of this photo. And then if you go to value, then it's about the brightness. So the higher, you will see that we start deleting some part that we don't want to delete. Also take into account that this is only one frame, so it may happen that in any other frame the colors change a bit, and then it's a bit risky. So it's good to keep it in a way that you're still in a safe zone. So let's just for the moment keep this one. You will see that we still have a lot of blue here, and we have this blue here, and we have some parts that we want to delete, but for the moment it kind of helps, and it got rid completely of some of the colors. And as you can see, this part of the window actually was darker if you select this part, so it also helped with the values, because we don't accept so much brightness, and that's why it gets hid out. But this one is quite brighter because it's the sky, and that's why it's not getting removed. Then let's go to the colors field. If you connect it, let's do it this way this time, it will be easier to explain. So if you connect this part here and we say, okay, we don't want the green to be over the red one, never. So we select the green, and then we select the red one. And what we are doing now is that whenever the green was higher than the red channel, we are then limiting the amount of green to the red. And that's why the table now looks better. So as you can see, here it was greenish, but now we got rid of this green, and it also affected here. But you would be able to play with some mask. So for instance, if we go to motion tracking and then to the mask, since in the footage Natasha will never go after this barrier, we can create a mask that is actually masking out this area here. And since the video is recorded with a tripod, it will not move as well. So we already have a mask. It's as easy as that. If you wanted to move it during the frames, you would be able to press A and I, and then you would be adding some keys. Then coming back here, then if we go to mask, we put this mask and we select the one that we just created, you will see that this is the white part. What we can do with this mask is we come back to the colors field and connect this mask with the factor, and then we will see that it only affects this part here, to the table and to the floor. So this is how the mask works, and this is how the colors field works. You can also play with the ratios, and also you would be able to press unspill, which is in case you want to go a bit farther, and then you would go here, red, and limit it a bit more, like increase a bit the red or remove a bit of red, and the same with any other colors. And let's go to the next one, Cryptomate. This one we are going to skip because it works with materials, and we are not using any materials here, they're just photos, but it's helpful if you want to isolate colors from materials and so on, like work with this kind of effect. Then let's go to the difference key. Difference key is quite useful if you have a static background, or that doesn't have many changes of light and so on, because it will compare to images. In this case, if you compare this one with white, you could use it as a color key. If you select like this one here, and then we are trying to remove part of the sky and so on. So if we go here and then we select this part, and we're having similar situations. You can play with the tolerance and all that. But the good way to work with this image, with this node, is using another background image, like I said, that is not really moving too much. So in our case, we are going to use an image that I already created. You will see that it doesn't work very good in my case, because the light is actually changing. You have some waves here moving, so that the color is not static, but at least it can give you an impression of how it looks. So as you can see, it keyed out almost all of it, which is quite good from one side. From another side, we didn't want to remove the table, and you can remove the table from here, from this picture, and then, well, like, adjust the background, the part that you want to remove. So here you would be able to work quite good, and you would be able to try to remove this blue from my head with again with the color fill, and you would be able to remove these parts here with some color key, connecting them and mixing them. So if you play a bit with the tolerance, you will see that I'm actually starting to get some parts of my body keyed out. If we leave it this way and then we go to the matte, our shoes are completely removed. And again, that's something that we would be able to save by adding a mask, because we don't want to remove any color from this part here. So let's work with that again. If we go to the motion tracking and then we click here and clone this mask, let's call it floor, and then let's add another mask that is covering right all the floor here. So go back to the compositing and to the difference key. This time we don't have a garbage or factor, so if you go to mask and you select the new mask that we created, which is this one here, just make sure that it's the part that we want. And now what we would do is to add a mix node, and with this mix node we want to maintain the matte, so we are going to connect the matte here, and what we want is to also maintain the floor, so we are adding this one here. And what we get now, it's a mix, so we don't really want the mix. What we want is an add, and now we see that the floor is still untouched and the rest is still like it was before. Let's start grouping. What we want here is it's a mask with the color fill and the color key. We can now again put it back as it was before, and if we were to look at this one, we see what's the result here, which doesn't look bad. We could work something with this. Let's call this node key and spill, so we know what it does. And if we select this output, now we will be able to see what this is about. Then let's do the same here and group, okay, and we select the output to the output, and let's call this difference key plus floor. We have this one here, and we can see as well how it looks. In this case, it's not the result is not the image but the matte, and that's because we want to work with the matte. Actually, what we want to say at the end of this whole process is that the parts that are white will use this image, this picture, the original video, and the parts that are black will use the new background. So this is something that we will finish later, but for the moment let's learn about the other nodes. And then we have the distance. So if you go to the distance, this one works quite good if you want to remove one specific color, so it's similar to the color key. And then let's go to, for instance, this green, and again the problem that we have is that we are removing part of the t-shirt. So if we put it back to 0, the fall off, and then we see that it's not removing anymore the part of the t-shirt. But what we can see is that if we increase the fall off and it's starting to get black, it means that it's the next pixel that would get black if we increase a bit the tolerance. If we put it back down and we start increasing the tolerance, you will see that the part that is actually getting black is this one of the t-shirt. You can also try connecting this one here instead of a color. Actually, the base, you can use it for many situations. And then you see also that it works quite good. So then we are seeing the similar situation that we have here. So here we have just a few other colors, but at the same time we have the t-shirt almost gone, and here as well. So we can say that it's similar and it works in a very similar manner with the color key here, or if we were selecting color one by one, you would see that it's also similar to the different scheme. Then we have the famous keying, which works almost for all the situations, but especially for green screens, because you have a lot of options like pre-blur and like screen balance and all these things that we will see right now. So here what we can do with the keying is similar to the other nodes, but with some additional features. So let's say we want to remove this kind of green. We could increase the screen balance, which is comparing the main color that we selected, the main channel, against the other two. And in this case, it really worked pretty nice. It deleted almost everything coming from the photo. You could also work with the reference image, but I don't think it will work as good as this one, and you see that it has a lot of noise now. You could try removing all this noise, but I would not recommend getting involved into such a headache. So it will be much easier to try to remove this white, adding a mask. So you can add a mask that is covering the lower half, and another one here. Although these colors are really similar, if you press Alt B, you can see, and then Alt and a middle mouse, and then you can see that you can get to move the footage. These colors are really similar, and they will be giving me some issues. The best would have been to choose a different t-shirt, but you can see here that you can also play with the pre-blur that is creating this kind of soft colors and around. So in case you wanted to keep this one and you didn't want to completely delete it, you would still be able to work with that. And delete and erode, which is taking more or less part of the image in case the borders were not too clear and then you wanted to clean them up. So, and the post blur does a similar effect, and from the after cutting the part that you don't really need, it tries to blur them. About the edges, we don't need any edge here. You can also play with the clipping black, and you can see here that it's actually starting to delete part of the table and part of my swimming suit and any other black part. So that is not the best way to get rid of the black, probably. And the same with the white. If you were to pull it down, then you would see that it's recovering parts of the image that were quite white. And then we can mix it with, in this case we can add here the floor, just in case it was deleting any part of the floor, which is the color matte. And that means if we add a mask here, it won't delete this part of the mask. Or the garbage, which will be the exact opposite. And the king does a great job, like you can see, and you can combine it with other nodes. Then let's put the distance up here because it's similar to what we've seen already. And then some other very interesting nodes we have here are the king, screen, and the luminance. So the luminance one usually works good when there are a lot of contrast, and you can see here it's turning black and white the parts of my body, and it keeps the background a bit. But it's actually hard to work with it because you can see that it's deleting some parts. Now it's deleting too much. But the way you can work is by combining these two. So for instance, this one is keeping this area that isn't wanted, and this one is doing the exact opposite. So we can subtract. For instance, if you come here, we have the king, and from the king we want to remove the white color. So we come here and we do mix, and we connect the output of the king, which is a matte, and you can remove this matte here as well. The result is a bit cleaner matte, which is again still not extremely clean, but it helps for the future. So if you compare now, it deleted part of it. Let's just select clamp to make sure, and you can again play a bit with these values and make sure that you're deleting as much as you can without deleting the part of the t-shirt that, as I can see here, it started to delete, as well as the top. If you pull this one down a bit, and then we can keep later the floor, but what it seems is that it's more or less creating a good result. So what we can now try is a color ramp. We connect this output. Unless it's completely black, we want it white. And then we are recovering some part of the photo that were kind of deleted. Then you could combine this one with the floor, which is a mask. And then select the mask of the floor. You can organize this a bit more, but just for now it works as it has to. Then select here add, we select this image and this other one, and we are recovering some part of the floor that were gone. Then the king screen. So this king screen is usually working with different gradients of the background. So like I said at the beginning, you have a static photo here in case you want to use it as a difference, but you may want to adjust this background if it's moving. So what we can do here is go back to the motion tracking, and then you add one more object in case you have some tracking and you don't want to mess with it. Then this object, to this object you add some tracking points like this is like some of them. Just be careful with how many you're adding, because the more you add, the more careful you have to be later. that they are not interfering with the bodies. And as the wave or the background image moves, you will see that the colors are also moving. So if we come back to the king screen, we select the object. Now you can see that there is a kind of a mess of result, but these are the different gradients that we want to remove. So you can use this one to remove as a keying color for any of the previous nodes. So if we don't want to break anything and we come here, for instance, we can say, okay, color key, and we connect the image, and then we play a bit with the hue, and we can see that we are deleting some parts of the image. You can adjust this a bit better, adding some more points, but for our situation it's not working too good, because we have even if it looks like an easy background, it's a bit complex because of the colors that I'm wearing here. And with that, we covered all the nodes. Let's just say that what we want now is to get a good result, and imagine that we wanted to know how this photo is looking right now. Then what we can do is add a mix node, and for the moment then let's add this one here, because what we want is that the white color refers to the original photo, and then the background here. Then we connect the add to the factor, and the result is the combination of both. As you can see here, this is still, it requires some color spill, so we can add the color spill. It looks, even if we didn't finish it, it looks more or less good. So after exploring it a bit, what I see is that what I messed up with the add. So what we don't want is to have extra white, because otherwise it gets in a weird color. Just make sure that you're adding these clumps when playing with black and white, so you don't go over white or minus black. And then you would remove part of these borders. As you can see, it has a bit of a silhouette that we don't really want. We also want to get rid of this, but you know already now how it would work, because you have this color spill and you can play around with it. Something else that I have just noticed is that this is broken, so what we can do is, at some point we were selecting what part is a blur, and in order to keep that part as an original photo. So what we want to do is to come back to the mask, and the one that is a blur, we can maybe extend it a bit and say that we want to keep these colors here. Now it will probably work better. So again, select the nodes. You will see that this part, it's a bit blue, so it means that it requires some extra effort fixing those colors, but for the moment that's fine. And then let's just do the final step. Let's imagine that all the rest was okay, and then we would be removing the silhouette of the body. So for that we go to delete or erode, and for that we cannot use the image as it is, but we can use instead what we were using as a factor. With this factor we know what part of the image we are using from the original and what part we are using from the background. That means we know already the borders, we know the silhouette, and that can be really helpful. So if we go to delete erode, we duplicate this node and then we add it again. By the way, if you want to organize this a bit better, just do shift and right click, and then they become a tree. So it's quite useful, this trick as well. Then if you select this one and then let's make it smaller, you see that it's getting reduced. And then the same here, but in another direction, so +1. If you used only the -1, you would be able to remove the silhouette. Okay, so you can keep this one. But what I want to achieve is now a kind of a blur that is blurring only the borders. We have all the borders, and what it does is we are going to use this as a blur, as an input for the blur node. This way we will try to mix the new background with the old video. So we can also play a bit with the length of the borders. And now that we have this, then let's just come back here, say blur, and we want to blur this picture. In the picture we now select this mask, and if you were to put something exaggerated, just for me to show you how it works, and then let's select variable size, you see that the only part that is getting blurred are the borders. Let's just not go so far, not so exaggerated, something about 5 seems good. And even though it still has this silhouette, just to show you how each one of these nodes works and how to get these results, you can see that more or less you managed to remove all the background, except for this part that we would just concatenate this with another color node and remove this kind of white, or with a mask or any other trick that you can combine now after learning how all these nodes works. So I hope it was helpful. Now you can work with the printing and changing the background in the same way that you would do with any other VFX videos. So I hope this was helpful for all of you. If you don't want to miss any new updates or continuation of these kind of videos, feel free to subscribe, and see you next time. Bye.